Greetings, my name is David Rodriguez, team leader of Homer Solutions to the Everyman from Sparta Springfield. And our team consists of members Jose Alba, Jill Noss, Deanna Rascon, and myself. Our organizational proposal was on SupplyOne, a local manufacturing plant based in Tucson, Arizona, which is aligned with coursework for LDRV 305, spring semester 2016. A part of our team values are based on a climate of open communication and holding each member equally accountable. Lastly, our teams hold a variety of accumulated knowledge, background, experience, and interpersonal skills. Now for a little background on SupplyOne. As I stated in the introduction, SupplyOne is a company based in Tucson, Arizona and produces corrugated and foam products for shipment purposes. They have an employee headcount of less than 100 employees. Recently have found in their foam department that employee job satisfaction is in the decline and employees are experiencing low levels of engagement. They're also required to conduct a drug testing program which causes further decline in these areas. SupplyOne management has asked our team to help them answer one question. How can they implement a drug testing program without compromising employee morale? The purpose of our consultation was to identify the source or sources of these issues and provide solutions to SupplyOne management to enable a successful drug testing program. So what will our group do to achieve this objective? First, we'll examine and evaluate the organizational structure that contribute to these issues that were addressed in our last slide. This will include the communication between different departments, the hierarchy of the organization, and its effects on these sorts of issues. Our next step is to provide recommendations to SupplyOne management that will produce the outcomes they desire. One area for our group to focus on is interventions that will have the most impact with the lowest cost. So on basis of our findings, this is what we gained in research from SupplyOne. We conducted interviews with employees and will elaborate on the following areas: the organizational culture, and identifying what type of organization SupplyOne is and how they operate as an organization on a day-to-day basis. Furthermore, we reviewed the group dynamics of the foam department and distinguished the positive and negative elements of the group. Our group will explore the quality of life for a SupplyOne employee, which includes their pay, benefits, and work-life balance. Lastly, we'll review any outcomes that are presented from these areas of interest and then review and overhaul the problems that exist. A part of our findings was examining the SWOT of the foam department. SWOT is an abbreviation for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We found as a strength in the foam department that there is a cohesive social environment for employees. This enables employees to provide social support to each other. Furthermore, this allows for greater employee interdependence, creating mutual and beneficial support. Weaknesses we identified were a high-powered distance structure that created barriers between management and employees, which institutes a lack of formal communication between these levels. This allowed for some opportunities to clarify communication from management and improve quality of work life for employees. The persistent threat that exists is a mandatory drug test that worsens the organization since it creates a lack of purpose or value for employees. The findings of the current organizational structure found that it is a hierarchical organization. The mission, goal, and direction are set by SupplyOne Corporation, which is then filtered to the CEO of the Tucson site, then to local management, then the leads of their respective departments, and lastly to the employees. This format adheres to a formal organization that has management communicate and delegate agendas to leads, which distribute tasks and daily workflow in order to build a structure for a cohesive unit of employees. As identified in the last slide as a weakness, this structure is an example of a top-down implementation with power and communication coming from the top that establishes a distance between management and the low levels of employees. Furthermore, in touching upon the last slide, our group was able to identify the group dynamics and communication from our findings. This creates a low autonomy for employees since they have to report to their lead every day for work instruction and elaboration on tasks for the day. Richard Ward, the warehouse manager, is a person over the lead of the foam department. His role is to act in a manner that addresses conflict and any ambiguous information that employees are unclear of. The underlying fact further creates a tall structure for the organization, creating a layer between management and the employees. This causes communication to come down from the top, but this allows for feedback from employees up to the levels of management. our findings of the social environment, we found that the employees of the foam department are a communal group of individuals. They communicate and work alongside each other daily, even with different nationalities and languages spoken. They are able to participate and collaborate with each other to complete daily tasks. Their hours of work, lunches, breaks, and days off are synchronized to create cohesiveness and efficiency in work structure. They converse not only on work matters, but address personal matters with each other, offering emotional and moral support. Lastly, one example we found was that one of the organization departments have a softball team that gets together weekly for local games. The findings for quality of work life found that employees' wages are set at the industry standard. Full-time employees receive benefits, a 401k option, and accrue their personal time off. This is different when compared to part-time employees where their wage and benefits are set by the temp agency that has hired them for the organization. Furthermore, these part-time employees are kept on or let go before hitting their 60-day max for being hired on full-time. Any open position available in other departments are primarily filled by external applicants with hardly any communication directed to part-time employees. Thus, we found from employee interviews that employees are motivated by pay alone with little motivation where pay is not rewarding. So from our group findings, what does this all mean for SupplyOne? From what we gathered, there are a polarization of work attitudes in the organization. It was hard to clarify the exact similarities for gaps in these different views. From the interviews and examination of the foam department, we found that half of the employees are content and enjoy a work-life balance, while the other half dislike the pay and management structure of the organization. Both of these differences come to agreement on the lack of personal growth and development for employees, along with seeing value in their work. A part of this, which we found to be an outcome, is no performance outcome for employees. There is no standard of measure for employees to be evaluated and offered feedback on. Full-time employees are given yearly reviews with testimony gauged by their supervisor and peer supervisors. Our group evaluated the needs of KPIs, also known as key performance indicators, as a standard to improve productivity and growth for the organization. What other problems addressed in our findings? We found that job roles are unclear with no KPIs or performance standards in place for employees. This simply means employees show up for work and do the job that is asked of them without seeing the value or importance of their work. Also, there is no growth or development opportunities for employees, leaving them in a position that sees them in a continual cycle of mundane and tedious daily tasks. Finally, there is poor upward communication that comes from the employees, which builds a lack of trust in management, not addressing employees' concerns. Overall, our group found a psychological breach for employees, which caused a distrust in the SupplyOne management. The management is thus breaking an agreement on the agreed terms between the employee and them. This leaves the employee exhibiting low motivation in their work and low job satisfaction, faltering them from being a proficient, exceptional, and capable employee. With the background and findings on the SupplyOne organization completed, I will turn over the presentation to our other group members who will discuss in detail our recommendations for SupplyOne. First up will be Deanna Rascon with an overview of our first two recommendations.
Homer Solutions' first recommendation for SupplyOne will entail adjust leadership styles. In order to adjust the leadership style for SupplyOne, we must first take into consideration what are the current leadership styles that bring upon employee issues. Once we have identified this style, we may want to consider alternative leadership styles that fit the need of the company or the department, and in this case, it would be the foam department. Examples of positive leadership styles would be feedback, trust, confidence. Once these are implemented, you will see a positive change in the employees. The current leadership styles that are being offered to the foam department to take into consideration are the transformational leaders, who are considered role models, and what they do is encourage their employees to be creative, use their imagination while working. They also pay attention to their employees' needs and accommodate them when needed. Also, they provide coaching and mentoring to their employees who may need a little help in a situation. Transactional leaders offers rewards such as giving bonuses to employees for a job well done. They prompt their employees by encouraging them to complete task A to move forward. Also, their job is to actively monitor any abnormal behavior that would be not considered standard. They do point out mistakes that need to be corrected, not to be mean in a sense, but they like things done correctly. Continuing on with another set of leadership styles, the laissez-faire leaders tend to give the least possible guidance to their employees. By doing that, they tend not to lead from front to top. They also tend to avoid making any sort of decisions. Also, they do delay actions when it comes to their employees, and they prompt independence in their employees because they feel that people tend to grow and excel when left alone. Situational leaders adjust their leadership styles to meet the needs of their employees for structure and support. Situational leaders has a telling style, which is more of a micromanage type of a leader. The participation style is giving a sort of direction and receive feedback. The delegating style is when their employees know their duties and perform them with little supervision. By relying on leadership styles and what consists of a good leader comes into question, what can management do for their employees to have this positive outlook? Positive leadership styles should be offered to employees by management or supervisors is support, feedback, trust, confidence, and integrity. Once those are all implemented and abided by, you will see that positive leadership reduces stress and increases well-being. It also can result in a more satisfied, productive workforce for everyone. You will see reduced absentees and staff morale will be better in the organization. Homer Solutions' recommendations for SupplyOne is to improve the communication amongst management and employees. To improve communication within SupplyOne is first getting to know the current issues that are being perpetrated by poor communications amongst the organization. For instance, to improve communication could build autonomy in employees, and not only with them, but with everyone within the organization. And by doing that, they must convey trust in employees' skills, capabilities, and facilitate coordination across teams. Also, they must empower employees by developing them through a feedback system. Other ways you can improve communication is make resources and information available at a designated area so that employees don't have to search far for information. Also, having an open door policy for all employees is also a best way to get to know your employees and get to know what the situations are once they're brought upon. Here are a few more ways to improve communication for SupplyOne, ranging from upper management down to the supervisors and or leads, then on to the employees. Information such as policies and procedures should be instilled to simplify organizational work processes, not make them more complicated and time-consuming. They should be easily accessible to all employees and must have a designated area to do so. Secondly, team building increases collaboration and cooperation between team members. And this not only applies to just the employees, but also applies to upper management as well. Also, you could implement an employee onboarding orientation program and also a formal orientation program. And these programs could be for either new hires or existing employees, just to give them updates of what's going on in the organization as far as new policies or new procedures.
Our third recommendation is in regards to how to manage performance. To effectively manage performance, we want to begin by clarifying roles that eliminate role ambiguity in the foam department in order to increase commitment and productivity. We want to formalize job expectations and measures to set a standard for employees by providing quantifiable measures of their performance, allowing them to visually see, for example, by graphs or pie charts, how they stand up against their coworkers. Having well-established performance indicators will relieve the stress of ambiguous job roles and allow management to help develop and improve their employees' development opportunities. Managing performance includes regular and appropriate recognition of staff performance that leads to higher motivation and engagement. At the same time, this allows supervisors to provide low performers with feedback by coaching them and helping them set goals to reach the performance standard we want to identify. Clarifying roles, formalizing job expectations by establishing performance indicators, regular and appropriate recognition are performance management strategies allowing for coaching and development opportunities for all level performers. Following this recommendation will help the employees of SupplyOne value their work as well as develop meaning and purpose as they align their objectives with the overall goal and philosophy of SupplyOne. As we discuss managing performance and refer to satisfaction, purpose, and commitment, we are discussing building a work culture where employees enjoy their jobs, and we want to increase intrinsic motivation. Homer Solutions wants to help SupplyOne create the supportive work environment that motivates employees without solely relying on pay. Relying on pay alone to increase motivation and productivity can be problematic, and we'll discuss using monetary incentives alone in the next slide. Let's touch on a couple of ways to support and enhance intrinsic motivation, starting with identifying individual staff strengths and development areas and fitting their characteristics to a job, also known as job fit. Job rotation is another tactic. Satisfaction can decrease as the employee could view taping and boxing, for example, monotonous doing it 40 hours a week. Rotating in packaging, installing the foam, or cleaning the work area will decrease the repetitive worker role, leading to an increase in interest and development, which overall increases satisfaction. As employees gain skills, managers can empower them, bringing a sense of increased autonomy to the employee. Altogether, the supportive leadership then reinforces the positive performance, motivation, and commitment by being a supportive leader. As we are seeing, intrinsically motivated employees perform better and are more committed to their jobs. Many companies try to increase this motivation and performance by using monetary incentives alone, like setting a quota, without focusing on other factors like the ones we just discussed. By relying solely on bonuses for reaching a quota, you may see some unexpected consequences like lower performance as employees begin to expect the incentive and feel entitled to it. It's also been known to increase unethical behavior in employees as they try to repetitively reach this goal and quota. As a company, you could think you are rewarding excellent performance because a particular staff member reaches their quota every quarter. However, if they are using unethical tactics to reach this goal, then you will most likely be rewarding unethical behavior and not the great performance. This is one example known as rewarding A but hoping for B. It can be demotivating for employees as well, who almost reach their quota but don't actually receive the bonus. Incentives can also further frustrate group dynamics and bring harmful competition. Although the foam department is a cohesive, tight-knit workforce, monetary incentives may disrupt the healthy environment, creating this unhealthy competition. And we can't ignore the high cost of implementing incentives. We would need to define what the goals are that need to be reached before we could tie an incentive to them. Through intrapersonal assessments, we were able to note the managerial aspects we're currently seeing with SupplyOne, which are negative leadership styles. Negative leadership styles are correlated with less motivated employees and poorer performers. Some of the results reported in the assessments note there is currently no coaching being done to attend to performance problems. Some staff are treated unfairly, such as temporary staff who are hired with the expectation that they will become full staff and receive full benefits within 2 months, but are not. Instead, these staff's temporary status extends for more than 2 months, and they are never given the same benefits as a full staff member. Also, policies and barriers are not explained, but instead simply staff are expected to follow rules without having the ability to ask questions. The foam department competes with other departments, although they should work together considering the dependency packing, foam, and shipping has with one another. And poor feedback to no feedback is being reported through the interpersonal assessments that we conducted. Some effective ways to motivate employees include boosting the employee's confidence. For example, a leader can use empowerment, as discussed earlier. Creating positive work environments, increasing communication, such as with the policies and current hygiene barriers. Supporting employee satisfaction by creating value in their jobs through job rotation and goal setting. And matching employees with their skills and interests, known as job fit. But let's take a look at how we could motivate employees using both money and intrinsic factors we just discussed. If we were to use an incentive, we'd want to make sure that we're rewarding for the right behavior. For example, if an employee is engaged in an unethical behavior to meet their quota, we would be rewarding unethical behavior, and thus we'd have to monitor and rule out this sort of cheating. At the same time, we would not want to discourage individuals from working in teams. If our goal is to keep cohesive teams, then we may want to look at tying incentives to group efforts. Overall, empowering employees by giving them control over what their incentive is will also be helpful. For example, they could choose their incentive to be working a half day or taking a paid day off, working from home, instead of just a monetary money bonus. Coming up with ways to tie money and intrinsic motivators will require the performance management we've been discussing. We want to create goals that are strategic, measurable, attainable, relevant to our aim, and within a timeline, otherwise known as SMART goals. SMART goals will set us up with a greater sense of what and how we're defining our end result. Overall, through our research-supported suggestions and experience Homer Solutions has working with companies like yourself, we're truly focusing on two things: positive leadership styles and really cultivating that, but also supporting intrinsic motivators. Providing support for these intrinsic motivators will bring a sense of efficacy to employees, which ultimately increases commitment, engagement, and productivity. The true motivation for them relies on recognition, achievement, opportunities for growth and advancement, and overall a greater sense of responsibility in their duties.
Our fifth recommendation is a shift to proactive drug prevention. In order to prevent drug use at SupplyOne, we suggest that the company address underlying problems that cause drug use rather than just testing for it and dealing with it as needed. Our research has shown that a system based on trust yields higher productivity and employee morale than one based on testing. For example, in a study of 63 high-tech firms in the computer equipment and data processing industry, drug testing was found to reduce rather than enhance productivity, according to a report by the ACLU. Firms with pre-employment drug testing scored 16% lower on productivity measures than firms with no drug testing in the workplace at all, according to the ACLU report. Furthermore, drug testing doesn't always catch drug users. Drug testing, especially when conducted exclusively during the hiring stages, doesn't guarantee that you'll identify a drug user. Reynolds Holding wrote for Time magazine that the vast majority of workers who use drugs undergo examinations only when they apply for a job, and they can pass by abstaining from drugs for a reasonable period before the test, or by using a variety of masking agents or devices that make their urine seem clean. If you want to improve productivity and decrease absenteeism in your workplace, there are other methods available for encouraging personal accountability at your company, including encouraging participation in substance abuse programs. Medical insurance often covers counseling and such programs. If you suspect that an employee has a problem with drugs or alcohol, promote a substance abuse program at the office. Raising awareness for insurance-covered counseling kindly allows employees to address issues confidentially and quietly, and it shows that your company supports healthy recovery, doesn't just issue reprimands. Conduct comprehensive reference checks. Instead of testing candidates for drugs, try conducting more comprehensive reference checks on your employees. Ask for 3 professional and 3 personal references. Prepare a list of questions in advance that ask previous employers and personal references to honestly evaluate a candidate's sense of personal accountability. Of course, check with a lawyer ahead of time to make sure that you're not violating any workplace discrimination laws. Reference checks done correctly will identify more areas for potential problems or conflict than will any drug test. Hire outside consultants to improve workplace efficiency. If there is a decrease in productivity at your business, it may have nothing to do with your employees at all. Hire an outside consultant to analyze your operations and bookkeeping. There is a possibility that some drug use at SupplyOne is reactive, meaning that employees could use drugs as a result of work problems. We believe that improving the work environment and managing work stressors could help proactively prevent drug use by employees at SupplyOne. Our sixth recommendation is that SupplyOne keep the existing drug testing program, but with very specific updates. In order for any drug testing program to be successful and comply with legal requirements without alienating the workforce, it must be implemented in a consistent, transparent method. For example, conduct only focus testing of a person if there are well-founded suspicions of substance abuse, and with the documented agreement of top managers. Establish a policy of general drug testing with employees' full knowledge. Set written policies that define risks and safety needs, weigh employees' expectations, and develop a balanced policy. Spell out how monitoring will be conducted and how data will be secured or destroyed. Inform the workforce. Again, transparency is key. Explain the risks to the business from employee drug use, the policy, the limits on employee privacy, and the fact that monitoring will occur. And of course, you'll want to apply the program as painlessly as possible. How can you do that? Well, begin and end with the positives. Frame the program by emphasizing the fact that you care, that drug testing will be conducted with an eye to everyone's well-being. Offering employee assistance for individuals with emotional and/or substance abuse problems will reinforce your caring, encourage openness, and reassure workers that their mental and physical health are your highest concern, and that you want to provide help and support to anyone who needs it. Clearly outline the policies. Make sure your program takes state, local, and federal laws into account before you establish your policies. Then put them in writing, including an FAQ, and conduct an in-depth training session for supervisors so they're equipped to answer any questions that might arise. Training sessions for employees will ensure everyone understands the policy. Pay special attention to current hot-button issues, such as the fact that the use of legalized or medical marijuana doesn't legally prohibit you from dismissing an employee for drug use. Talk about testing procedures. Make sure employees know your testing will be bias-free and won't single out specific employees or classes of employees, which would leave you open to discrimination claims. Assure employees with special concerns, such as physical conditions that might prevent them from providing urine samples, that accommodations will be made for them. Whatever you do, present a consistent policy. Provide informational materials and access to resources. Give employees all the information they'll need. Produce a handout detailing your company drug testing policy. If handouts on drug abuse and local treatment resources aren't available free of charge from local organizations, they often are, be sure to provide this information yourself. And then wind it up on a personal, positive note. Assure every employee that he or she will be treated with respect during drug testing, up to and including the fact that no one will be allowed to discuss test results. Remind everyone that help is available, both through community resources and at work. Encourage employees with problems to reach out, assure them of your support, and go over employee assistance contact information just one more time. In addition to these steps, and in order to really ensure success of the program, we suggest that the company involve employees in coming up with drug testing policies. For example, each department could send a delegator to a meeting that is tasked with making recommendations to drug test policy. Even if the task force's recommendations are not implemented after the meeting, the workforce will feel represented and supported by that process. According to Jeffrey Davis in Planning and Leading Productive Meetings, meetings are a terrific arena for achieving buy-in. Questions can be raised, doubts expressed, and issues clarified. Once people are satisfied that their issues have been addressed, or at least heard, they begin to buy in. Further, if they're invited to help create the new idea, initiative, or solution, then buy-in comes even earlier in the process.
In conclusion of our recommendations, what are the next steps for SupplyOne to be able to answer their question from the beginning of this presentation? Our group suggests the following changes to allow for implementation of a drug testing program that does not harm employee morale in adjusting the current management approach of the foam lead that sees them offering positive and intrinsic motivation for employees that negates bias and nepotism. Improve the communication methods and policies between higher levels of management and employees for better coherence. Establishing KPIs and performance standards for employees for better evaluation of employment efficiency. Build intrinsic motivation in employees that empowers autonomy and ability to self-lead. In being proactive about drug prevention and addressing the issue of drug use in place of random testing for employees. And lastly, updating SupplyOne's current program to adapt new tactical policies that address drug testing and have proven successful. How can Homer Solutions help? A follow-up appointment with our consultants can further discuss our recommendations and implementations. Our group can also offer analysis of SupplyOne's current system successes and offer additional information regarding best practices. We can be reached anytime through our attached contact information and expect a follow-up call from one of our consultants within the next 2 weeks. Lastly, I want to finish by thanking you and reviewing our PowerPoint consultation on SupplyOne and are waiting and open to any feedback you may have. Again, thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.